I remember the first time I truly understood what simplicity meant. I was training for hours, adding more moves to my routine, more techniques to my arsenal, more complexity to my approach. Sweat dripped from my body as I pushed harder and harder, believing that mastery meant accumulation, more knowledge, more skills, more everything. It was wrong, completely wrong. That night, exhausted and frustrated despite my efforts, I caught my reflection in the dojo mirror. Behind the complicated forms and technical precision was a fundamental truth I had been missing. I was drowning in complexity, suffocating my own potential. Look around you. We live in a world obsessed with more information, more possessions, more options, more technique. The modern mind is cluttered with endless noise, social media notifications, endless emails, constant demands for your attention. You feel it, don't you? That overwhelming sensation of drowning in complexity while thirsting for clarity, the exhaustion of trying to keep up with everything while mastering nothing, the frustration of working harder but feeling like you're moving backward. Simplicity is not the absence of complexity, it is seeing through complexity to the essential core truth. When you strip away the unnecessary, what remains isn't less, it's everything that matters. This is the secret that transformed my martial arts, my philosophy, and ultimately my life. And it's the truth that will transform yours if you're brave enough to embrace it. I faced this same battle, not with technology, but with martial arts. As a young man, I studied classical kung fu, memorizing hundreds of complicated forms, intricate movements passed down through generations. I practiced diligently, perfecting each position exactly as it had been taught for centuries. Yet something was missing. Despite all this accumulation of techniques, I felt constrained, limited, like a caged bird that knows it should fly, but has forgotten how. The breakthrough came not from adding more, but from questioning everything. I began asking, what serves? What is essential? What is true? Questions became my compass, guiding me away from blind tradition toward genuine understanding. When I looked at traditional martial arts with fresh eyes, I saw movements designed for ancient battlefields being practiced without understanding their purpose. I saw students memorizing forms without grasping their essence. I saw complexity obscuring truth. This realization birthed Jeet Kune Do, not as another style to memorize, but as an anti-style, a philosophy of simplicity, of honest self-expression, of using no way as way, of being like water. Water teaches us the ultimate lesson in simplicity. It doesn't struggle to find its path. It simply flows along the path of least resistance. It doesn't try to overcome obstacles through force. It adapts to them, flows around them, sometimes even penetrates them through gentle persistence. Water doesn't concern itself with how it should be or what others expect it to be. It simply is, expressing its nature fully without self-consciousness or hesitation. How many of us can say we live like water? How many of us express ourselves with such honest simplicity? Most of us are trapped in our own minds, overthinking every move, second-guessing every decision, comparing ourselves to impossible standards. We've forgotten how to simply be. I spent years unlearning complexity, years stripping away the unnecessary, years questioning every technique, every movement, every belief. What remained wasn't emptiness. It was clarity, precision, power. True mastery isn't found in complexity, it's found in simplicity. In doing simple things with such focus, such presence, such understanding that they become extraordinary. Think about the most powerful punch. It's not the one with the most flourish or the most complexity. It's the one that travels the shortest distance with the greatest focus. The 1-inch punch isn't powerful despite its simplicity. It's powerful because of it. All energy focused on a single point. No wasted motion. No unnecessary effort. This is the essence of simplicity. Not the simplicity of the primitive, but the simplicity that lies beyond complexity. The same principle applies beyond martial arts, to your work, your relationships, your entire approach to life. When you simplify, you don't diminish, you distill. You concentrate what matters and eliminate what doesn't. This is where true power emerges. Consider your daily life. How much energy do you waste on the unnecessary? On impressing others? On meeting expectations that aren't your own? On pursuing goals that society has programmed into you, rather than those that spring from your authentic self? These complications drain your power, dilute your focus, and distance you from your true potential. I remember working with a student who came to me after training in 5 different martial arts. He could perform hundreds of techniques, could quote the philosophies of multiple traditions, yet when faced with a simple sparring match, he froze, paralyzed by options, trapped in his own mind. Unable to express himself naturally, he had accumulated so much knowledge that he had buried his instincts. He had learned so many ways that he had forgotten his way. This is the paradox many face, believing that accumulating more will lead to mastery, only to discover that it often leads to confusion. True mastery isn't about having 1,000 options, it's about having the right option and executing it with complete commitment. So how do we move from complexity to simplicity? The journey begins with honest self-assessment. You must have the courage to look at everything you've built your identity around and ask, does this serve my true expression? Does this move me toward my essential goals? Or is this just noise distracting me from what matters? This questioning is uncomfortable because it challenges our egos. Our egos thrive on complexity because complexity can hide incompetence. In simplicity, there is nowhere to hide. A simple punch either lands or it doesn't. A simple truth either resonates or it doesn't. Simplicity exposes us, makes us vulnerable, demands that we actually understand rather than merely imitate. I faced this discomfort when I began questioning traditional martial arts. Masters who had spent decades perfecting complex forms were outraged by my suggestion that much of what they practiced was unnecessarily complicated. My criticism wasn't that their arts lacked value. It was that their arts had become so encumbered by tradition and complexity that their essential value was obscured. The same is true in your life. The complexity you've accumulated, the unnecessary habits, the unexamined beliefs, the social performances, the material excesses, all of these can obscure your essential nature. Simplifying doesn't mean abandoning your knowledge or experience. It means integrating them so deeply that they become instinct rather than intellectual exercise. Think of learning to drive. At first, every action requires conscious thought, adjusting mirrors, signaling turns, monitoring speed. The complexity is overwhelming. But with practice, these actions become integrated. They simplify. You no longer think about driving, you simply drive. Your knowledge hasn't disappeared. It has been absorbed so completely that it now expresses itself without conscious effort. This integration is the heart of simplicity. It's not about knowing less. It's about understanding so deeply that complexity becomes unnecessary. As I often said before I studied the art, a punch to me was just a punch. A kick, just a kick. After I learned the art, a punch was no longer just a punch. A kick no longer just a kick. Now that I understand the art, a punch is just a punch, a kick just a kick. This cycle, from natural simplicity through studied complexity back to informed simplicity, is the path of mastery in any field. The master chef doesn't need elaborate recipes. Years of experience guide their intuition. The master musician doesn't think about scale theory while improvising. They simply express through their instrument. The master martial artist doesn't calculate angles and forces. They respond with trained instinct. How do you begin this journey towards simplicity? Start by identifying what truly matters to you. Not what should matter, not what others think should matter. What actually resonates with your core being. This requires ruthless honesty and the courage to disappoint others' expectations. When I abandoned traditional forms to create Jeet Kune Do, I disappointed many who expected me to uphold classical traditions. But I couldn't stay trapped in movements that didn't express my truth simply to meet others' expectations. Once you've identified what truly matters, eliminate everything that doesn't serve it. Be merciless in this purging, in your physical space, in your schedule, in your relationships, in your mental landscape. Cut away the unnecessary so the necessary may speak. This doesn't mean living an austere life devoid of joy. It means ensuring that everything in your life has purpose, brings value, or creates genuine happiness. Next, master the fundamentals of whatever matters to you. Simplicity isn't achieved through ignorance, but through profound understanding of basics. I spent thousands of hours perfecting basic punches, basic kicks, basic footwork. Not different techniques, but the same techniques explored deeply. This focus on fundamentals is counter to our culture's obsession with novelty, with the advanced, with the complex. But there is nothing more advanced than a perfectly executed fundamental. Finally, practice mindful presence in everything you do. Complexity often creeps in when our minds are scattered, when we're thinking about the past or the future, instead of fully inhabiting the present moment. When you're fully present, you naturally distinguish between the essential and the superfluous. You naturally move towards simplicity. Let me share a story that illustrates this principle. During my early days in America, I was teaching a student who was struggling with a particular technique. I showed him repeatedly, broke it down step by step, explained the mechanics in detail. Still, he couldn't perform it effectively. Finally, in frustration, I asked him to stop thinking about the technique and simply watch me. I performed the movement once, with complete presence, with no thought of teaching or explaining. Just pure expression. "That's it," he exclaimed. "That's what I've been missing." What changed? I had stopped adding complexity in my attempt to teach and simply embodied the movement with presence. The simplicity of that authentic expression communicated what words and analysis could not. Think about the moments of your life that have moved you most deeply. Were they complicated? Or were they simple moments of connection, of beauty, of truth? A child's laughter, a sunset, a moment of understanding between friends where words become unnecessary. The most profound experiences are often the simplest. The same is true of the most profound ideas. Einstein's E equal to mc2 isn't powerful despite its simplicity. It's powerful because of it. It distills an immense truth into an elegant expression. My own philosophy, be water, my friend, isn't diminished by its simplicity. Its power lies precisely in its direct, unadorned truth. You might be thinking, this sounds appealing, but my life, my work, my challenges are genuinely complex. Simplicity is a luxury I can't afford. I understand this objection. I face similar resistance when promoting simplicity in martial arts. Real fights are chaotic, critics said. You need complex systems to address complex situations. But here's the counterintuitive truth. Simplicity is precisely what complex situations demand. When chaos surrounds you, when pressure mounts, when stakes are highest, this is exactly when you need clarity, when you need to cut through noise to essence, when you need simplicity most desperately. Consider emergency responders. They don't use complex decision trees in crisis situations. They rely on simple protocols, mastered so deeply they become instinct. Consider elite military units. Their operations may be sophisticated, but individual soldiers focus on executing simple fundamentals under pressure. Consider master negotiators. They don't overwhelm with complex arguments. They identify the core interests and address them directly. Complexity creates hesitation. Simplicity enables action. This is why simplicity isn't just aesthetically pleasing. It's functionally superior in demanding circumstances. But achieving this functional simplicity requires work. It requires the discipline to question everything, the courage to eliminate the unnecessary even when it's comfortable or impressive, the persistence to master fundamentals rather than chase novelty, the presence to remain centered when complexity threatens to overwhelm you. I devoted my life to this pursuit, not just in martial arts, but in all aspects of existence. I studied philosophy not to accumulate knowledge, but to distill wisdom. I trained my body not to perform impressive feats, but to express truth through movement. I developed relationships not to fulfill social expectations, but to connect authentically. The result wasn't an impoverished existence, but an enriched one. Simplicity didn't diminish my life. It amplified it. Each moment became more vivid, each action more meaningful, each choice more aligned with my essential self. By eliminating the unnecessary, I created space for the vital to flourish. You can follow this same path. Begin today. Look at your life with fresh eyes, questioning what you've accepted without examination. What complexity are you tolerating that doesn't serve your true purposes? What possessions weigh you down rather than lift you up? What relationships drain your energy rather than amplify it? What habits distract you from what matters most? As you practice simplicity in these tangible areas, you'll develop the discernment needed to address more complex domains. Your work, your relationships, your internal landscape of thoughts and emotions. The muscle of simplification strengthens with use. Start small. Simplify one area of your life completely before moving to the next. Perhaps it's your physical space. Remove everything that doesn't serve a purpose or bring genuine joy. Experience the clarity that comes from an uncluttered environment. Perhaps it's your schedule. Eliminate commitments that don't align with your core values or goals. Feel the spaciousness that emerges when you're not rushing from obligation to obligation. Remember that simplicity isn't an end state, but a continuous process. Complexity naturally accumulates like dust. New possessions enter your space. New commitments fill your calendar. New ideas clutter your mind. Simplicity requires ongoing vigilance, regular reassessment, the courage to keep letting go. This vigilance isn't a burden. It's a practice that brings increasing clarity and freedom. Each time you choose simplicity over complexity, you're choosing focus over distraction, authenticity over performance, essence over appearance. You're choosing power. I experienced this power most profoundly during my most challenging moments. When facing opponents with greater size or strength, I couldn't rely on complex techniques. I had to identify the essential weakness, the direct path, the simple truth. When facing cultural barriers in Hollywood, I couldn't afford elaborate strategies. I had to embody my philosophy so completely that its truth became undeniable. When facing my own doubts and fears, I couldn't hide behind intellectual complexity. I had to confront simple realities with simple courage. These challenges didn't break me because simplicity had made me anti-fragile, able to adapt, to flow, to respond to circumstance without being bound by rigid forms or expectations. This is the ultimate gift of simplicity, resilience. When you've stripped away the unnecessary, what remains is strong enough to withstand any challenge. Water again provides our metaphor. In its simplicity, water is incredibly resilient. It can be frozen, heated, polluted, yet once the pressure is removed, it returns to its essential nature. It adapts to any container without losing its essence. It yields to force, yet ultimately overcomes all obstacles through persistent, simple flow. You too can develop this resilience through simplicity, by identifying your core values and aligning your life with them. Mastering fundamental skills rather than chasing endless techniques, by being fully present in each moment rather than scattered across past and future, by expressing yourself honestly rather than performing for approval. As you practice simplicity, you'll discover that it generates its own momentum. Initial efforts may feel challenging as you confront the complexity you've accumulated, but soon, simplicity begins to feed itself. A simplified physical space makes it easier to maintain mental clarity. Mental clarity enhances decision-making about commitments. Better decisions create more time and energy for what truly matters. A virtuous cycle emerges. You'll also discover unexpected benefits. Creativity flourishes in the space created by simplicity. Innovation emerges not from adding more, but from seeing differently. Leadership becomes more effective when vision is communicated with crystal clarity rather than obscured by complexity. Relationships deepen when authentic connection replaces social performance. These benefits accumulate, reinforcing your commitment to the simple path. What began as an intentional practice becomes a natural way of being. You no longer strive for simplicity, you embody it. Just as water doesn't try to flow, it simply flows in accordance with its nature. This is the state I ultimately achieved in martial arts, not through accumulating more techniques, but through deepening my understanding of fundamentals until they express themselves naturally, without conscious interference. I reached a point where I no longer needed to think about responding to an attack. My body simply deployed the most direct solution without hesitation. This same state is available to you in every area of life, not just in specific skills, but in your entire approach to existence. You can reach a point where simplicity isn't something you do, but something you are. The path to this state begins with a single question: what is essential? Ask this question of your possessions, your commitments, your relationships, your beliefs, your goals. Ask it without flinching from the answers, even when they challenge your identity or comfort. Ask it repeatedly as circumstances change, as you evolve, as new complexity threatens to accumulate. Let this question guide you toward increasing clarity, toward the brilliant simplicity lies beyond complexity. Let it lead you to your own essential nature, not the self-constructed from social expectations or accumulated identities, but the authentic core that remains when unnecessary layers are stripped away. This journey towards simplicity isn't easy. Culture rewards complexity, celebrates busyness, equates accumulation with success. Swimming against this current requires courage. It requires the willingness to disappoint others' expectations. It requires faith that less truly can be more. But the rewards of this courage are immeasurable. The clarity that comes from seeing through complexity to essence. The power that emerges when energy is focused rather than scattered. The freedom that blooms when you're no longer burdened by the unnecessary. The authentic connection that becomes possible when performance falls away. I experienced these rewards throughout my journey, but most profoundly in moments of simplicity so pure, they approached emptiness. In these moments, whether in meditation, in movement, or in creative flow, the boundary between self and world dissolved. Complexity vanished. Only direct experience remained. These weren't moments of loss, but of fullness so complete it transcended ordinary perception. This state, sometimes called no mind or flow, represents simplicity's ultimate expression. Not simplicity as reduction, but simplicity as direct communion with reality, mediated by concept or judgment. While such states may seem mystical, they're actually our most natural condition. The way we experienced life before complexity accumulated, before we learned to overthink, before we built identities that needed constant maintenance. Returning to this natural simplicity doesn't mean abandoning advancement. It means advancing to such mastery that complexity becomes unnecessary. It means understanding so deeply that explanation becomes superfluous. It means embodying truth so completely that demonstration replaces discussion. This is what I meant by simplicity is the key to brilliance. Not simplicity as ignorance, but simplicity as profound understanding. Not simplicity as limitation, but simplicity as transcendence. Not simplicity as emptiness, but simplicity as pure potential. Water again teaches us. In its liquid state, water appears simple. Yet within that apparent simplicity lies immense complexity. Hydrogen bonds, molecular structures, remarkable properties that enable life itself. Water doesn't need to display this complexity to express its nature. Its brilliance lies precisely in how its complexity manifests as elegant simplicity. You contain similar depths, your consciousness, your capabilities, your unique perspective. These are profoundly complex. Yet your greatest power lies not in displaying this complexity, but in distilling it into simple brilliance, into direct action, into honest expression, into presence so complete, it transforms everyone it touches. This transformation doesn't require special talent. It doesn't demand privileged circumstances. It asks only for courage. The courage to question, to eliminate, to focus, to be present, to express yourself honestly no matter the consequences. I found this courage through martial arts, through philosophy, through confronting my limitations until they no longer defined me. You'll find it through your own path, your own challenges, your own moments of truth. The specific journey matters less than the direction, always toward greater simplicity, greater authenticity, greater alignment with your essential nature. Begin now, not tomorrow when circumstances might be better, not after you've accumulated more knowledge or resources. Now, in this moment, take one step toward simplicity. One assumption, eliminate one unnecessary possession, decline one unhelpful commitment. Practice presence for one conscious breath. This single step creates momentum. Small simplifications lead to larger ones. Greater clarity emerges. More energy becomes available. Authentic power develops. Before long, you're no longer forcing yourself towards simplicity. You're naturally flowing into it, like water finding its true path. As this flow strengthens, you'll discover what I discovered. Simplicity isn't just a practice or a philosophy. It's the natural expression of a mind freed from unnecessary constraints, a spirit reconnected with its essence, a life aligned with its true purpose. This is the brilliance that simplicity unlocks, not the flashy brilliance that demands attention, but the quiet brilliance that transforms everything it touches. Not brilliance as a destination to reach, but brilliance as your natural state when complexity falls away. Be water, my friend. Let simplicity reveal your true nature, fluid, powerful, adaptable, unbound by artificial constraints. Let go of who you think you should be to discover who you truly are. Strip away the unnecessary until only essence remains. In that essence, that brilliant simplicity beyond complexity, you'll find what I found. Not limitation, liberation. An emptiness, but infinite potential. Not an end to growth, but its true beginning. Simplicity is the key to brilliance, because simplicity reveals the brilliance that was always within you, waiting to express itself once the unnecessary fell away. This is your heritage, this is your path, this is your truth.